While we're talking about differences, the other thing that you may notice that's different for us than you is we run a CLC for our main inert supply. There are two options. You've got this one, and then you have a multi-pack, which is six individual cylinders that'll be contained together.
And when you're using a multi-pack, you will have to use a gas regulator directly attached to it. It sort of makes the multi-pack behave as a CLC where it drops the pressure down to 230 psi, which is what a CLC runs at. So just keep that in mind if you plan on going that route.
Kind of depends on your usage. If you're using about once a month or more often, you probably want a CLC. If you're using it less frequently than that, you want a multi-pack. The reason for that is the CLC vents over time, so you actually will lose it. But you can get more in here. It's a bit easier to move around. So if you're using the Sinter very frequently, this is a better option. So starting with the gas and the gas panel, the Sinter uses two different types of gas. So we've got our inert supply, which is an argon, a 99.9999% pure argon. And then on our other side, we've got mixed gas. So the mixed gas is mostly the same argon, but it has 2.93% hydrogen in it. So again, just depending on where it's at in the Sinter cycle, it's going to alternate between these. Um, Breaking it down further from there, we do have four whips coming out. The main whip is going to be your main inert supply. So this is the thing that you want to be drawing from for your argon. The second whip is your reserve argon. So this is basically just a backup. You really want to try not to tap into this. For a Sinter one, there's just enough to finish a cycle. So you can get your parts out, but as soon as you tap into that thing, you really want to replace it because there's only enough to finish that run. For a Sinter 2, there's really only enough to cool the Sinter down before it does any sort of damage to itself or to the parts inside. So you want to be especially careful in that case. Going further from there, you have two mixed gas. These are both the same, but the system's kind of funky the way it works. You want to point this arrow towards the cylinder that has the lesser amount of gas left in it, and you can tell that using your cylinder 1 and 2 pressures. So as the system is pulling gas in, it's going to use the one that the arrow is pointed at until it drops below, I think it's 100 psi, and at that point it's going to switch over to the next cylinder that should be full. The arrow's not going to change. This is only manually changed, but the system will know, hey, this one dropped below pressure. We've got to start drawing from the other one. So it's going to start pulling this one down. Once the run finishes, you want to replace the cylinder that's now empty. So say it was this one, for example, place a new one in, and you want to switch your changeover arrow now to point to this side, which now should have less. All of the individual cylinders should start with about 2,500 psi. So that gives you kind of a range of, you know what to look for. Um, Getting into the gauges, your first gauge on the left is your primary regulated pressure. So whether it's pulling from the reserve or your main inert supply, that's the pressure that's going into the Sinter. Same thing for your mixed gas regulated pressure. That's whether it's cylinder 1 or cylinder 2, that's the regulated pressure that the Sinter is calling for. And you're going to use the regulator setting utility, which is built into the Sinter, to set those. It's roughly 35 psi each, and you will get a warning if those things aren't right. So um, continuing from there, your reserve regulated pressure, that should be set to 100 psi when we're there, and it really shouldn't change too much from there. Once you pressurize and depressurize the system, it can fluctuate a little bit, but once all of your gas is open, it should be 100 psi. If it's not, you may want to submit a ticket, and we'll just take a look at it just to be safe. But otherwise, that's the pressure that if this thing drops below it, it's going to start pulling from the inert reserve. So again, 100 psi. If this thing drops below 100 psi, we're going to start drawing from our reserve. Continuing from there, we have our reserve cylinder pressure. So that's basically the amount of your reserve gas remaining. Again, about 2,500 psi to start with. So especially for your inert reserve, if that drops below, you want to replace it because, again, there's only enough to finish a run or cool one down. Similarly, cylinder 1 pressure is the amount remaining in cylinder 1. Cylinder 2 pressure is about the remaining in cylinder 2.